Greetings, I'm your host, Dr. Wolfula, and when I'm not convincing Soviet Russia to boycott the Olympics so I can get free Big Macs at McDonald's, I'm here at the Wolfula RiffViewing movies. The 2024 Summer Olympics are underway in Paris, the most anticipated Olympics yet for having the most fuckable of all Olympics logos, at least so far. So I figured I might as well commemorate this prestigious quadrennial celebration of world unity that started out as an excuse for Greek guys to wrestle each other naked. Like you need an excuse to do that. So why not recognize the Olympics with an obscure Olympics-themed slasher movie from the 80s? Yeah, there's a slasher movie made for every occasion, and in this case I'm referring to Olympic Nightmare, better known as Fatal Games, directed by Michael Elliott and released in 1984, direct-to-video by Charles Band's long-defunct Media Home Entertainment. Before we begin the video, though, I just want to give a shout-out to my sponsor, me! Pledge to my Patreon today to support the channel, help it continue to grow, and you'll also get access to weekly movie nights every Sunday and archive commentaries if you miss the movie nights live. Just $5 a month to get a movie night every week. Here's the movie I'll be streaming next Sunday. Pledge to patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula if you're interested in my bonus streams, and I thank you in advance. Now on to my review of Olympic Nightmare.
Ain't no highway, being first, that's all that matters.
Olympic Nightmare begins with a montage of Olympic hopefuls preparing themselves for the upcoming games. But who gives a shit about their feats of athleticism? What really matters in the opening is the kick-ass song Take It All the Way playing over the credits.
Take it to the limit and don't look back now. Take it all the way.
It sounds like the soundtrack to a Rocky training montage in a sequel where Rocky boxes like a robot shark or something.
Take it to the limit. Just give it all you gotta give, yeah.
The song was written by Shooky Levy, who went on to do the score for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And you know, that adds up because this song seriously fucks, and the Power Rangers also fuck. Even Billy, he fucks. I mean, he fucks guys, but he still fucks.
Hey, fellas.
This song needs to be the theme for every Olympics. This song playing could turn anybody into a gold medalist. A gold medalist in fucking.
Winning is the only thing. Take it all the way.
Now, admittedly, based on the intro, the music, and the main cast of the film, the alumni of Falcon Academy of Athletics, receiving a very poorly airbrushed group photo taken of them, followed by the gang horsing around during a commencement speech, which leads to having an impromptu paper towel tug-of-war, well, you'd understandably assume that this is not a horror movie. I mean, I guess this is kind of scary if you're an Olympic hopeful. You act like this trying to get into the Olympics, and your ass is going straight home in shame. I mean, the next scene shows a jackass in his tighty-whities desperately turning his dorm over looking for his gym clothes, only to find out his girlfriend was wearing them the whole time.
Did you look in the refrigerator under the cheese?
Which feels like a scene straight out of a bad sitcom. Until this dude starts vigorously ripping this chick's clothes off. Followed by an even hornier scene where the couple bathes together while Lynn here discusses her anxiety over the school administering experimental steroids to the students.
Frank, you know my worries about all this medication they've been giving us.
But it's understandable if you missed this part of the plot while distracted by the rest of the film's plot.
You don't see him dropping dead, do you?
A big plot point of Olympic Nightmare is that all of the film's potential Olympic athletes are just taking steroids with seemingly no consequences or side effects.
Look, I'm quite pleased. I think the steroids that I had Diane put you on are paying off.
The ladies aren't a bunch of hairy freaks covered in acne, the guys aren't violent, tiny dick psychos, at least no more than usual, and the chief doctor at Falcon Academy, Dr. Jordine, played by the fucking director of the movie himself, well, he's just handing steroids out to the students like it's candy, but this is only treated with mild concern. Just one of those things you have to do to compete. Nurse Diane here does raise concerns over the Academy's doping.
Dr. Jordine, they are kids. They are kids. They are not guinea pigs.
But that's as far as it's taken.
Look, the East Germans and the Russians are doing the same thing.
What ultimately matters in this movie are the women's locker room shower scenes. Every 5 minutes in the film, there's a scene where the ladies hit the showers and change in a massive open-air locker room. The shower's in full view of the locker area. So even when you have a pesky dialogue or expository scene, you can still sneak some peeks at some side boob, an ass, or maybe even a bush. It's really innovative filmmaking that's a rarity in today's cinema.
You just qualified for the Nationals.
Qualified. Winning there is going to be a hell of a lot tougher.
Understandably, after watching the first 20 minutes of Olympic Nightmare, you might think that this is maybe a Porky-style sex comedy, or that genre's more artistic cousin, softcore pornography. But then Nancy here enters the weight room after hours, lifts a dumbbell for a moment, and is immediately impaled with a javelin, which is what any guy would want to do to her, but not literally. Okay, maybe literally. Nancy's disappearance the next day is only briefly brought up by Annie.
You see Nancy?
No, I haven't seen Nancy.
Everybody moves on super fast. Star athletes go missing all the time, like Peng Shuai. It's never malicious.
Does anybody know where Nancy is? No?
Anyway, Annie has a massage appointment with Diane here. This takes priority over finding Nancy.
He's afraid that your bus line has been developing too rapidly.
You've got to be kidding.
Little trivia, the actress who played Annie didn't want to show her ass for this totally necessary massage scene. So shots with her ass are actually Scream Queen Linnea Quigley's ass, and I should know. I've memorized every inch of Linnea Quigley's supple body. I'd know her stunt ass anywhere.
He's instructed me to start you on retardation injections.
She already has that. Why does she need it injected? Well, stun ass or not, Diane is getting a little too close to massaging Annie's taint for the young lady's liking.
I think I better go.
Sure.
Don't worry, though. The next scene features Lynn and Sue fully nude in a sauna.
This is the first time in my life I feel I have my act together.
These scenes are totally necessary for the sake of the characters' personal growth. And for the sake of my personal growth.
San Francisco, here I come.
While all of the white students leave the school, it gives the javelin-wielding killer an opportunity to get murdering the movie's one black character out of the way. Usain Bolt, more like Nudesain Bolt. To explain why none of Sue's friends can hear Sue's screams just outside the school, this jackass apparently just never turns his car off when he parks, leaves the keys in, and the muffler muffles any sounds of screams.
So loud. I'm gonna get a new muffler.
Yeah, for real. The crazy thing is that this isn't even the longest pole Sue's had up in her guts. The next day, Annie gets a visit from her dad, Walter Matthau, who explains that he just doesn't see a future for Annie as an Olympic athlete.
And what about my future as a gymnast?
How long will that last? And then what do you do? What do all these athletes do?
Yeah, book, movie, and endorsement deals, get real. There's no money in that. As we speak, Shaquille O'Neal is out begging on the streets.
I don't know about the future, but I know I'm a good gymnast. A damn good one.
This melodramatic scene is not a great showcase of Annie's acting, and it's also just really fucking pointless. Who cares what her dad thinks? There's a guy on the loose fucking killing people. That's a lot more important.
I have to do it, Daddy.
Annie vents about her dad to her best friend Lynn, with another girl wearing nothing but flip-flops bathing in the background. Is there even any dialogue in these scenes? I can't remember. Later that night, Lynn does some solo practice swimming in the dark natatorium. I'm honestly surprised she isn't swimming nude. What, is she modest suddenly? Well, Lynn's boyfriend Frank arrives to unfortunately fulfill the nude swimming quota. Preventing the killer from getting some more killing in. Such a javelin block.
The winner and new world champions, thank you. I love you all. Thank you.
That's not fair.
The next day, this javelin-throwing red herring quenches his thirst while his murderous doppelganger quenches their thirst for blood. In that whole field, there wasn't a single witness? Meanwhile, Coach Drew here meets up with her swimming student Shelley, who Coach Drew has been fucking in some kind of mommy-daughter roleplay.
You still have enough time. You still have a chance.
Yeah, if Lynn drops dead.
We don't find out much more about this beyond it serving as another red herring, but man, apparently the Olympics are really fucking kinky. I gotta tune in more.
Things, they just didn't turn out the way I intended.
Later that night, two of the film's suspects, Diane and Coach Weber, go through their possible motivations if they were the killers.
Cops keep harassing me as if I had something to do with making these kids take off. Hell, as far as I'm concerned, they can all disappear.
And how they're bitter over the misspent youth of their students.
These damn kids don't train the way we used to. Busted our asses we did every minute of every goddamn day.
I wonder if one of them is the killer.
Sometimes helping other people brings its own rewards.
After practice, Annie's desperate loser boyfriend Phil struggles to ask his own girlfriend out on a date.
The only thing on tonight, Phil, is you.
Can we at least go out and get a burger?
Phil lets Annie down by taking her to a Mexican restaurant. This doesn't even look like a Del Taco. Can't get a goddamn burger here.
Happy birthday to you.
So anyway, it's apparently Annie's birthday, and her boyfriend Phil has the perfect gift for her.
Forgot your birthday present.
What is it?
His cock.
Oh, Annie, yes, we are going to my place. Yes.
Down, you pinhead!
These two are lucky they're white, or these cops would be very angry.
We're going to my place, you know?
So anyway, that night, Phil fucks Annie.
Haven't you had enough?
But not really.
How many is that?
97? 98?
After all, Phil's trying to win the gold medal for involuntary celibacy.
Why don't you move in with me?
Phil, you're out of your mind.
Later that, same night, I guess, Phil has some good news and bad news for Annie.
Well, forget the bad news and tell me the good news.
Good news is I still love you.
Oh, shit.
Olympic athletes really are relatable.
What's the bad news?
The bad news, though, is that Phil's dad is making Phil quit running and become a baseball player.
But my dad's always wanted me to have a career in baseball.
Like a non-basketball playing Michael Jordan.
But Phil, our plans together.
Which drives a wedge between Annie and Phil.
If that's all our plans meant to you, I've got some practicing to do anyway.
Am I going to see you later tonight?
So it looks like Phil's going to be doing some more naked push-ups by himself tonight. Annie spends some alone time in the pitch-black sauna room. Unfortunately, much more modest than her friends, who don't have a no-nudity clause in their contracts. The killer arrives at the school along with 3 of the film's red herrings. I wonder who the killer could be. I'm so intrigued.
And I just came to pick up some schedules for tomorrow. That's all right.
Coach Weber and Diane end up finding Annie in pain on the locker room floor. Must be her monthlies.
Let's go to the hospital.
No, won't be necessary.
So Diane here takes Annie back to Diane's place. I like where this is going.
Sometimes these drugs, they backfire and you get spasms.
Diane ends up giving her superior, Dr. Jordine, a call to remind us that, despite what might be said by Diane in the next scene, Jordine is still totally a suspect.
Be certain no one else hears about it.
I mean, he randomly pokes a needle through a bug like the killer impaling students with a javelin. This totally isn't a desperate bid to make him a red herring. Meanwhile, Annie very quickly undressed. I really like where this is going.
Those photos look so old.
They are old.
Instead of finger-banging Annie, though, Diane opts to info-bang Annie. Diane telling us that Diane's mother was an Olympic gold medalist.
I've been trying to be as good as my mother all my life.
And Diane felt she could never live up to her mother's legacy, which isn't very sexy, but it does culminate in Annie hugging Diane. All right, that's good. Now stroke Annie's hair. Before things can get hot, the movie cuts away to Phil and Annie reconciling, which is honestly not hot at all. Not hot at all.
The good news is that I do forgive you.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Stroke Annie's hair.
Give it everything you've got. You can do it. That's it.
Meanwhile, Frank hits the parallel bars and lands on his parallel balls.
Oh, God! Frank, are you all right?
Frank's ensuing leg injury ends up ruining his chances of entering the competition, but at least he doesn't have to worry about Tanya Harding breaking his leg first.
Don't go, all right? I want you to keep working hard, because you're going to win for both of us.
Later that night, determined to win for both of them, Frank's girlfriend Lynn practices her swimming, and come on, why isn't she swimming naked? This movie's starting to lose me. Because Lynn decided swimming in a poorly lit pool was a good idea, she totally missed that there was a scuba suit-wearing killer waiting to impale her. Or maybe Lynn saw the scuba diver and just thought it was normal. I think the Olympics has scuba diving.
I think something terrible's happening here at the Academy.
Frank becomes suspicious of Lynn's sudden disappearance, and not the disappearances of like half a dozen other people in the past 2 days.
Listen, you guys seen Lynn?
She hasn't come into work out yet today.
And Dr. Jordine himself becomes suspicious of his own faculty after discovering a defaced photo of his class.
Somebody came in here and did this.
Only the 4 of us have keys to this office.
Man, now he's gonna have to change his locks. Fucking pain in the ass. Meanwhile, some grips set up a scaffolding in the gymnasium. I know this scene seems pointless, but trust me, this will come in handy later. Frank knows something fishy is happening at Falcon Academy, though, and plays Hardy Boys by calling Phil for help in the investigation.
There's got to be a reason why Joe, Sue Ellen, and Nancy all disappeared.
Frank decides in the meantime to play Nancy Drew by getting a head start on the sleuthing solo, and the movie decides to show us in real time a man struggling to walk with crutches, pretending that his leg is broken while exploring the school's entire campus by himself. The sequence of Frank's investigation goes on for about 15 minutes with no dialogue, very little happening. There aren't even shots of fully nude women in the background to keep us entertained. I guess this is supposed to be a suspenseful sequence. The killer could appear at any moment and prey on Frank at his most vulnerable. But we hardly know Frank. It's not like fucking Rear Window where we spend the whole movie with the guy. We spend more scenes with Frank's girlfriend Lynn topless than we spend with Frank clothed. Spending so much time with him fumbling with crutches gets old quick. What isn't going to get old, though, are Frank's dead friends. Man, Frank is a really girly scream. Frank crutches the fuck out of the school's basement, but is foiled by his worst enemy even before his leg broke. A flight of stairs. We spent 15 minutes with this jackass fumbling around dark hallways just for him to get his ass killed easily? Fuck that! Annie does some Nancy Drewing herself and stumbles on Frank's recently impaled corpse, and the killer intends for Annie to join the recently impaled club next. Speaking of which, after the killer grazes Annie with his javelin, he's about to club her to death with his big ball. Annie! But luckily, Annie's incel boyfriend Phil somehow manages to scare the killer off.
He killed Frank!
Phil desperately takes Annie to Diane in the nurse's office, where it's revealed to the audience that Diane was the killer the whole time.
Be out in a second, I'm just getting dressed.
While Diane secretly changes out of her murder clothes, and for some reason, Phil wouldn't be suspicious that the only other person that they've seen at the school was the same person who attacked Annie. For the sake of added tension, Phil leaves to do, something. Maybe he's the killer, with Annie left by herself with the very person who attacked her. But Annie happens to spot a pristine newspaper from 20 years ago just lying around in Diane's office that reveals that Nurse Diane is actually a transgender former Olympian who had her gold medal revoked when her secret was discovered. Oh, dear God. And after some cat and mouse, Diane evil monologues to the hiding Annie, with Diane's voice modulated to sound like she's a man.
Going to have to disqualify you now.
Or Darth Vader.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
The movie further digs its own grave by having Diane reveal that she only became a woman in bad faith because she wanted to win a gold medal in the Olympics at any cost, even if it meant competing in the women's competition.
Even became a woman just to win.
And she now kills any Olympic hopefuls out of revenge. So essentially this movie uses the sleepaway camp twist, but somehow manages to do it in an even more malicious, damaging way.
Annie!
Anyway, Annie hides up in Chekhov's scaffolding, which ultimately proves to be Diane's undoing, as Diane becomes impaled by the very trophy she sought out. Wait, didn't Diane want a gold medal? Oh, whatever. Close enough. A giant bummer of an ending, but thankfully that kick-ass song from the opening credits plays over the closing credits.
Take it to the limit. Just give it all you gotta give, yeah.
Alright, this makes up for everything else in the movie. Olympic Nightmare, aka Fatal Games, is a shitty movie with a very questionable final act reveal that's the common 80s slasher twist of the killer being transgender or a crossdresser, but it makes no sense for Diane to just want to be a woman for some edge against other women at the Olympics. Diane's throwing arm in the movie is practically superhuman. How could she not compete against men? It would have made more sense for the killer to be somebody who was disqualified from the Olympics for steroid abuse. The movie makes a point about Dr. Jordine pushing steroids on the students, but that's irrelevant because the killer is just randomly transgender. Olympic Nightmare does have its amusing moments, though, that make it worth watching for the so bad it's good aspect, but it also has its fair share of really dull stretches. It feels like it being a horror movie was a total afterthought, like you could edit the deaths out and it could become a frat comedy. It's definitely got the shower scenes for it. I give Olympic Nightmare an Annie covering herself up with a towel out of Linnea Quigley's ass. That's a gold medal winning ass right there. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go take it all the way with my hand. I'm gonna go jack off. Happy Olympics, everybody! This video is made possible through the pledges of my Patreon supporters, and I'd like to give a very special thanks to the kind folks pledged to my shoutouts tier. All of the support on Patreon means a lot to me, and it helps my dark influence continue to grow. If you like this video, like it, and if you loved it, click the subscribe and bell buttons for more vids. Be sure to also keep in touch by following me on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dr. Wolfula. While I still have your attention, consider pledging to my Patreon to support the channel and get bonus content like previews, VIP Discord server access, private movie night streams, and credits in videos. Consider pledging at patreon.com/Dr. Wolfula. Also, check out official Dr. Wolfula t-shirts and other merch on tpublic.com/user/Dr. Wolfula. Thanks for watching. See you all next time. Dr. Wolfula signing out.